My guest today was a high school soccer player, a golf enthusiast, and a 2013 United States Surfing Championships qualifier. He's now a happily married family man working in the IT field, and after gaining almost 40 pounds, he began running in 2016 and has since made great strides. I hope you find his story inspirational, so without further ado, I present the inaugural DevRunner interview with Michael Bartlett. I'm pleased to have a very special guest on my channel today. We've got a local runner who, just to be very open about things, is a good friend of mine. He took up running just a few years ago and has made huge strides in his PRs and just his general ability with running. So please, everybody, welcome Michael Bartlett. I think I gave away part of the first question, Michael, but if you could just let everybody know your age and where you're from, we can get started there.
Hi, yes, I'm Michael. I'm 34, and I'm from a small town in the mountains of North Carolina called Spruce Pine. It's between Asheville and Boone.
It's a beautiful area. So let me ask you, what is your general athletic background? Not just from running, but as far back as you want to go.
In high school, I played soccer and golf, and I wasn't really active for quite a few years. I mean, I was active. I surfed, I guess you'd say semi-professionally for quite a few years, and then moved to Charlotte for my career and took up running after several years of putting on the pounds.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of does that when they hit at least their late 20s, and then you know, in the case of most runners, they just kind of wake up and realize, oh, I think I better do something about this now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really hoping that you'd bring up your surfing, because you had some major accomplishments there.
Yeah, you know, I qualified for United States Surfing Championships. Actually, well, I guess the first year I met you in 2012, so 2013, I qualified for that in California. So that was pretty cool, pretty
That's
nice
awesome. So that's pretty cool. You went from like this amazing surfer, and then once you decided to take up running, well, I mean, we'll get there, but you've gone far really quickly. When did you start running? How long have you been running? Tell me more about that.
So I started in the summer of 2016. So this will be going on 4 years this summer. And, you know, I just sort of started to get into shape. I felt I'd always sort of wanted to run a 5K. That was sort of my goal, to be able to do that without stopping. So
Gotcha.
That's kind of what got me started.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people start. But since then, you've come much further than that. So, you know, what was your motivation for starting? Was it really just like for a weight loss thing, or?
Yeah, you know, I moved from the beach inland here to the Charlotte area for my career, and I sort of I had been active for several years, and I felt like I needed to get back into shape and sort of pull myself back together, I guess you'd say.
What were your main challenges when you first started running? Do you have any like physical challenges that you were worried about, or even things like as far as like just a daily schedule, like time availability to be able to train, etc.?
Initially, there wasn't really many, I guess, challenges other than just my physical shape of being able to complete, you know, a run. But, you know, so my wife and I started running together that summer of 2016, and then we actually found out that we were pregnant. So Kelly sort of stopped running running with me, and I just kept going and going and going. And I was like, I want to be in shape for, our daughter. And so that was sort of the lead in. And then, when she was born, the challenge was kind of being able to find the time to continue training with no sleep and how that goes.
Yeah, a new parent. Yeah, it's hard to find time. So I think that's probably going to be a very relevant point to a lot of people watching this. I'm just kind of curious, do you have any memory really of the kind of times that when you first started running with Kelly, what kind of times you were running? Like, were you even keeping track of the kind of pace that you were at in the beginning?
Yeah, I was doing sort of like an interval thing. Like I wasn't able to run a full mile without walking or stopping. So, my paces were sort of like in that 12-minute range where I would, run 2 to 3 minutes and then walk a minute and then, until I completed. I think I started out those first few workouts, I was doing like 2 miles, run, walk, run, walk.
Yeah. And how often were you actually getting out there to do the run walk?
I started out 3 days a week.
How many days are you running a week now? What kind of mileage? How did that progress?
Yeah, so I pretty much stayed on 3 days for a long time. I ran, it took me probably 4 months to be able to run a 5K, and my sort of goal with that was to run a 30-minute 5K that first go around.
Yeah, that's a great first one.
So it took about 4 months for that, or at least until I felt confident to go for it. And then I stayed on 3 days a week for I'll probably even say a full year. Just because of the time constraints with my daughter being so young.
You went from 0 and 4 months later, you were on your first sub 35K?
Yes.
That's really impressive. You got to a 10K later down the line. How far into your training did you finally go after that first 10K?
The first 10K was probably about 10 or 11 months. It was close to a year after that. After I first started running.
Gotcha. And what kind of time did you run? From what I recall, just to let people know that to qualify the time that you're going to give them, you ran this this was like in your hometown area where it's very mountainous, right?
Yeah, it was. There's one hill. There's one, I believe, quarter mile that has over 100-foot climb on it. So it's a really challenging course, but I believe I ran like an hour and 2 minutes, an hour and 3 minutes, something like that. I think my goal was an hour going in, but when I saw that hill, I knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, there's something about the way I don't know if this really speaks to everybody around the country, but there's something about the Charlotte and the North Carolina area where race directors feel like they have to try to destroy you in the last little leg of any race, whether it's a marathon or a 5K. There's just no such thing as just a gimme race around here.
Absolutely.
You said you were like 10, 11, maybe 12 months into your running career when you hit that first 10K. And for a first 10K, even if that was flat ground, I got to once again say that's a great time to be shooting for a 60-minute goal, and you just about did it.
Yeah, so I ran that 10K, and I sort of, after the 5K, I was like, well, I believe I could do a 10K after that, and then after I ran the 10K, I was like, well, I think I can step it up to a half marathon, and I can just continue on, and
yeah,
I guess continue in my fitness journey, if you want to say my running journey. I had signed up for the half marathon probably a couple weeks after that 10K race, so I knew I was going.
You wanted to go there.
Yeah, so I maintained the 3 days a week pretty much through the early part of the summer, and then the race I had chosen was the Myrtle Beach Mini Marathon in October. So in I believe July or August, I can't quite remember the training plan, but late July, early August, I started, and I added that 4th day then.
Gotcha. Now, how did that feel like as your first initial step to where you're running more days of the week than you're not? Was that easy, or did you notice that it took a lot out of you? Or
I mean, I don't necessarily think it took a lot out of me. I wasn't back then. I don't feel like I was really pushing the pace as far as a lot of my different runs. You know, they were all sort of still in that same pace range.
You were base building at that point. You weren't really worried about diversifying your training.
That 4th day, you know, it was like 2 miles. It wasn't a big deal initially, and then, you know, as the training plan went on, and then definitely towards the end, I think I peaked at 23 miles a week on that training cycle, and you know, I felt that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you know, considering how quickly you came along, so this is like about a year and a half into your running career that you went after that first half marathon.
Yep.
Okay. So what was your time goal, and how did you do?
So my time goal was 2 hours. I wanted to break 2 hours in that time, and I did not break that. I don't remember my exact time. I believe it was a 2:11.
Okay. Well, that's still great for a first half marathon. That's really good.
Yeah, I ran about 9 miles, nine and a half miles on pace to hit my goal, and then I hit that famous wall that everybody talks about.
Yep. I've been there myself.
Went to the old walk run then for the last 3.5 miles or so.
Gotcha. And what were the weather conditions like? Was there anything that was making life more difficult, or?
Absolutely, it was about 75 degrees, and by the finish, it was into the 80s. So it was a warm race. It was windy.
That's hot. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that you could even keep your pace for 9 miles. That's pretty impressive. You had to be happy just the fact that you ran that far. That was your first time going that far. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was, and as soon as I finished, I knew that I was going to try again. You know, for that 2 hour limit.
Yeah. That's how you know you're obsessed, when you become like a truly obsessed runner. Is like you cross the finish line, and no matter what kind of pain you're in, you're like, okay, let's go again.
I actually didn't run another race for a whole year, I believe. So I ran the same race fall 2018.
Okay, so you came back with something to prove then.
Yeah. I mean, I continued my training, and I pretty much kept that 4th day, you know, in there, you know, the whole time. So, you know, I wasn't racing, but I still tried to keep my mileage up.
Now, what kind of weekly mileage did you build towards it in your approach to the second half marathon?
Yeah, I probably maxed out around 25, 26 miles a week.
But at this point, you were diversifying your workouts. Did you have like tempo and speed days as well as easy days?
I did. So that in 2018, I had 2 easy days, a tempo workout day, and then my long run.
How long was your longest long run in the build up towards that race?
That year, my longest long run was 12 miles.
So you made it to Myrtle Beach for the 2018 race, and how'd you do?
2018, the weather conditions were a lot better. I believe it was about 53.
Oh, beautiful. Perfect racing weather.
That year, I was able to run a 1:57:33.
Oh, man. Wow. So you took, 12, 13 minutes off your time?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that. Talk about the feeling when you crossed the line and you realized that you'd done it.
Yeah, I was just, elated. I was so excited. I couldn't believe I did it. I couldn't believe I beat my goal by, over 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's a significant margin. That wasn't like, you weren't scraping through. You had plenty of time to spare.
Yeah, I started to struggle a little bit towards the end, but I was actually running with the 2 hour pacer. And he really sort of picked me up and was, giving me encouragement, to actually pick up the pace and finish that last sort of half mile, and I believe I ran that last half mile at like 8:20 or something pace to.
That's awesome.
To pick it up.
Yeah. 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 There's something about once you know the end is in sight, it makes it a lot easier to kind of get those feet moving. Cool. So what'd you do from there? I mean, you came off a huge win, and I'm sure you wanted to see what else you could do.
Yeah, I sort of took a little bit of time off. I mean, I still ran, but I sort of, laid low for the rest of 2018. And I decided I was going to run for 2019. I wanted to do the Charlotte 10 miler.
Now, when did that race take place? That's a spring race, isn't it?
It's middle of February. So
oh wow, so you still got great weather, nice cool weather.
Yeah. So I set a goal of an hour and a half for that 10 miler, which was really about around the same lines as that 2 hour half. I hadn't been training super hard. I felt like I could attain it. And then the race came around, and I felt like that 10-mile race was much, much harder than the half marathon was. The course, it had some hills on it, and but I definitely I hit my goal, but just barely. I think I ran like a 1:29:30 or something. Just
okay,
barely.
So I mean, hey, anytime you meet your intended goal, that's a good thing. I mean, don't undersell it. You at least proved that you are maintaining your fitness from the last half.
Right.
So what was your motivation to keep going?
So 2019, I'd sort of said, well, I'm not going to race another half marathon because we had found out that we were pregnant with our second child. I sort of wanted to lay low with the training that year. So I decided I was going to run the 10 miler earlier in the year, and then the same 10K in the mountains that I'd ran in the past. And then I wanted to do another 10K in Charlotte, the Around the Crown 10K, which is kind of like a novelty race on the loop around Charlotte.
So, okay, yeah. I mean, if you want to just quickly review, like what kind of times you ran in both of those 10Ks.
The 10K in the mountains, I believe I ran a 53 minutes. I trained.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I just wanted to point out that, so that's like a 10 or 11 minute improvement over the previous year, or from 2 years prior?
Yeah, it was 2 years, but I really trained. I knew what I was coming up against as far as the big hill or mountain, if you want to call it. So I trained really hard for that. My goal was to run up the hill. I did not quite make that. I ran probably about 3/4 of the hill, but I still ended up having to walk towards the end. It gets very steep. So
yeah. But still, I mean, it showed just a massive improvement in your fitness from the previous effort.
Yeah,
that's great.
So I ran that race, and then I trained hard throughout the summer. I had my mileage up. I was running 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. And for the Around the Crown race, I sort of had the goal to run a 48-minute 10K for that.
Wow.
So and then race day come around, and this is a tough course. It's hilly. It was also hot. Labor Day weekend in Charlotte, so it was in the 70s. At the start line at 7 a.m. So it was going to be a tough day. But I trained hard for it, and I ended up running a 45:15.
That's amazing. Yeah, I remember that because if I recall, I think when I spoke to you like 2 or 3 days before the race, you were like, I don't know, I don't think I can run a 52 or a 53, I think. And then I just remember when I got that text from you and you said you ran that time, and I was like, I knew you could do it, and it was just so great to see you having realized what I knew you were capable of, just, judging by the kind of training you'd been doing leading up to that race.
Right.
I believe your next achievement was the half marathon in Greenville.
Yes. So this year, February 29th of 2020, I ran the Prisma half marathon in Greenville, South Carolina. It's on the Swamp Rabbit Trail. And I'd set a pretty lofty goal. I felt like that I wanted to break an hour and 40 minutes.
Okay, now keep in mind, everybody, and please refresh me, Michael. The PR that you held in the half at that point was a 157.
157.33. So
wow. So you were trying to take some serious time off of your PR.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I trained hard, and you helped me with my training plan for that, as well as my friend Brad Orr. And I ran, I trained up to, I believe, 32 miles in that.
So that's a significant increase in your weekly mileage.
Yeah. In that training cycle, I trained really hard. My longest long run was 15 miles.
That's great.
And I really started focusing more on speed as far as tempo work and progression runs on the long run. So I was working down towards, race pace in the latter miles of those long efforts.
Yeah, to prepare yourself for having to really grind in the latter part of a race when it gets really tough.
Right. Race day come around, and I was able to run a 1:38.17.
That's so amazing. So 19-minute PR?
Yep, 19 minutes.
That's amazing. That is so great. It still makes me just so happy when I hear that number. That's so great. So, wow. So, I mean, you, in the space of 3 half marathons, you went from a 2:11 down to a 1:57, down to a, say that again, a 1:30.
1:38.17. Yep.
1:38.7. That's amazing. So just huge strides. And you ran that we're recording this in April of 2020, and you ran that in February of 2020.
Mm-hmm. And basically March, it was leap year, on leap day on the 29th.
Yeah. True enough. So, I mean, wow, that's huge strides in such a short amount of time. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, was just so that people could watch this and just see how, just a guy in his mid-30s in such a short amount of time, just setting his mind to it and just getting out there and grinding every day, or, grinding 3, 4, and sometimes 5 days a week over the space of 3.5, 4 years, can do amazing things, and I know that at this point, you're probably eyeing your first sub 90 is what I meant to say.
Yeah, sub 90. That's sort of probably the next goal. So I'm continuing to train through all the COVID-19 mess, and I'm working hard and keeping up my speed work, and hopefully, if we're racing by the fall, I want to put an attempt an attempt at it, sub 90.
Now, do you think you're going to take another shot at doing that at Myrtle Beach, or do you have another race in mind?
Yeah, either Myrtle or put it off just a little bit and try the Swamp Rabbit race again in February.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm dying to run that race myself. It just seems like the course just looks like it's built for PRs.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I'm going to ask this, and if you're uncomfortable with it, we edit it out. That's up to you. But you know me. Every time I get the opportunity, I have to try to press you to run your first full marathon. Do you think that's on the horizon yet?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I definitely want to do it. I don't think it's going to be this year, just with having two small children, but within the next, 1 to 2 years, hopefully, I definitely want to get there.
Gotcha.
So for now, I'm going to, maintain where I'm at and, see. I'm probably at a 5th day and definitely just if I could break that 90-minute barrier in a half.
That'll get you there for sure.
Yeah, just continue on with what I'm doing now because it seems to be working.
Let's see. I guess I also want to ask you about gear. Do you have any favorite shoes, any gear of any kind that you'd recommend to other people?
Yeah, I'm sort of becoming like a running shoe enthusiast, I guess you could say. I'm all over the newest technology and everything. But as far as racing shoes, I'm a big fan of the Nike Vaporflies. I believe the hype on that. They've helped me twice now.
Yeah, I was going to say there's proof in the pudding. Your PRs are proving that there's something to those shoes as well as your hard training.
Absolutely. So, I don't train in those shoes, but I do race in those shoes and I believe in them. And I'm excited for other companies to get their plate shoes to the market this year and try more of those.
Yeah, things are getting very exciting there in that regard.
Absolutely. And then just my Garmin GPS watch, I can't leave the house without it.
Yep. Like what has running taught you since you started running 4 years ago? How has it changed your life? Let me just put it that way.
Oh gosh. I mean, I believe just from running to starting in the summer of 2016 till now, I've lost about 37 pounds.
Wow.
So, it's definitely got me into shape, but it's just taught me like be consistent and, if you put in the work, good things are going to happen. You might not hit those goals, when you set them, but, if you keep working towards it, you will.
That's great advice. That's great advice, and I think that'll be very encouraging to a lot of people watching this, which is exactly what I wanted and the reason I wanted to interview you. I think you're really inspiring, and I think people watching this will really get a lot out of it. So the final question I have for you is once again pretty open-ended. Is there any advice? What are the most important things that you'd like to pass on to other runners that are watching this right now?
I sort of see a lot of people going out and running, super hard every single run. And I think that, one thing it's taught me and that you've sort of taught me is like, you got to have those easy days. And that's like, just as important as those hard workout days. So
yeah, recovery is just as important as pushing.
Yeah. And, my recovery days, I'm running probably over 2 minutes slower per mile than my race paces. So
very important.
Just put in the work and good things will happen.
That's great advice. Well said. All right, Michael. Well, I think we've reached the end of the line with the questions that I had prepared anyway. I just want to say I really appreciate you being on here. This was sort of the inaugural interview session for my channel, and I couldn't have asked for a better guest. Once again, thank you, and all the luck in the world to you and your future PRs and your future attempts. And if it's cool with you, eventually I'm going to have you back on this channel to talk about your first sub-90 half marathon. And I'm going to keep on pushing you because eventually we're going to be talking about your first marathon as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. You know, I appreciate the opportunity to come and share what limited knowledge I have on the subject, but I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much. And have a good night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. If you enjoy my content, please give it a like, subscribe, and ding the bell so you get notifications every time I post. It really helps out, so thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.